The world's rarest Bugatti sat inside Titan Elite Motors. It wasn't just another luxury car. It was a one-of-one prototype, worth nearly $12 million. Its owner was Victoria Hayes, CEO of Titan Elite Motors. Powerful, respected, feared. The Bugatti had one problem. It wouldn't stay running. The engine started perfectly. Then exactly 5 minutes later, it shut itself off. No warning. No error codes. Nothing. For 6 months, the company hired experts from around the world. 20 engineers. Formula racing specialists. Luxury performance mechanics. Software developers. Every one of them failed. The project had already cost over $3 million. Victoria was furious. "We're done," she announced. "Cancel the project." The room fell silent. At that exact moment, a delivery truck pulled into the dealership. The driver stepped out carrying auto parts. His name was Ethan Brooks. A struggling single father. He owned a tiny repair garage outside the city. He delivered parts to earn extra money after business hours. While waiting for someone to sign the invoice, he noticed the Bugatti. Its engine had just shut off again. Everyone sighed. Engineers packed their tools. Ethan quietly watched. Then, he smiled. One mechanic noticed. "You think something's funny?" Ethan shook his head. "No. I think I know why it stopped." The room burst into laughter. One engineer laughed so hard he nearly dropped his tablet. Victoria looked at Ethan. "And who exactly are you?" "I'm just delivering parts." "Then deliver them." Ethan nodded politely. He turned to leave. Then stopped. Without looking back, he calmly said, "The engine isn't broken. It's protecting itself." The entire workshop became silent. Victoria slowly turned toward him. "What did you just say?" Ethan faced her. "You don't need another engine. You need 5 minutes." Everyone laughed again. Except Victoria. Because something about his confidence felt different. She looked at her chief engineer. "What do we have to lose?" He sighed. "Nothing." Victoria nodded. "Fine. You get exactly 5 minutes. No more. No less." What nobody inside Titan Elite Motors knew was that the struggling single dad had just noticed something 20 world-class engineers had completely overlooked. The workshop clock struck 10 a.m. Victoria Hayes folded her arms. "Your 5 minutes start now." Every engineer stepped aside. Some smirked. Others pulled out their phones, expecting an embarrassing failure. Ethan didn't seem nervous. He walked slowly around the Bugatti. Once. Twice. 3 times. He never touched the engine. That immediately confused everyone. One engineer whispered, "He's wasting his time." Another laughed. "He doesn't even know where to begin." Ethan ignored them. Instead, he crouched beside the driver's door. He looked underneath the dashboard. Then he opened the fuel cap. Finally, he placed his hand lightly on the roof of the car and closed his eyes for a few seconds. Victoria frowned. "What exactly are you doing?" "I'm listening." The room erupted with laughter. "Listening? It's a car, not a person." Ethan smiled but said nothing. 3 minutes had passed. Only 2 remained. He asked for the complete service history. The chief engineer handed him a thick folder. "You won't have time to read it." Ethan flipped through only the last few pages. Then he stopped. "There it is." The chief engineer frowned. "What?" Ethan pointed at a single line in the report. Every test was performed indoors. So, no one tested it outside. The engineers exchanged confused looks. Victoria asked, "Why would that matter?" Ethan looked toward the large glass doors at the front of the workshop. "Because your engine isn't shutting down from a mechanical failure. It's responding to its environment." Silence filled the room. One senior engineer shook his head. "That's impossible." Ethan calmly walked to the Bugatti. He opened the rear compartment and carefully unplugged a tiny sensor no larger than a coin. The engineers gasped. "What are you doing?" "If you're wrong," one shouted, "you could destroy a $12 million Bugatti." Ethan looked at Victoria. "I won't damage your car. I'll prove your engine was never the problem." He reconnected the sensor after inspecting it closely.
Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Enjoy the video.
Then he smiled. "I found the real fault." The room froze. Victoria stepped forward. "In less than 5 minutes." "Yes." "What is it?" Ethan looked directly at the 20 engineers before answering. "It's not an engine issue. It's not a software issue. It's a counterfeit sensor." The room exploded with disbelief. A counterfeit part? On a Bugatti? That's impossible. Ethan calmly held up the tiny sensor. "It doesn't belong in this car. If I'm right, someone replaced the original sensor during routine servicing." Victoria stared at the part in his hand. If Ethan was correct, 20 top engineers had spent 6 months trying to fix an engine that had never been broken. The workshop fell completely silent. 20 engineers stared at the tiny sensor in Ethan's hand. One of them stepped forward. "That's impossible. We only use genuine Bugatti parts." Ethan smiled. "Then this one should have a serial number." He handed the sensor to the chief engineer. The engineer examined it carefully. His confidence slowly disappeared. "There isn't one." Another engineer grabbed a magnifying glass. A few seconds later, his face turned pale. "The logo is fake." Whispers spread across the room. Victoria couldn't believe what she was hearing. "You're telling me someone installed a counterfeit sensor in my Bugatti?" Ethan nodded. "Yes. But that's only half the problem." The room became quiet again. "What do you mean?" Victoria asked. Ethan walked toward the Bugatti and pointed at the engine bay. "This fake sensor sends incorrect temperature data. So the engine control unit thinks the engine is overheating." One engineer interrupted. "But the engine isn't actually overheating." "Exactly. The car shuts itself down to protect the engine." Several engineers rushed to their computers. Within minutes, they compared the sensor's readings with an external thermal camera. The results shocked everyone. The engine was running at 92 degrees Celsius. The counterfeit sensor was reporting 138 degrees Celsius. A difference of 46 degrees. The room fell silent. One engineer whispered, "My God. We've been chasing a problem that never existed." Victoria slowly looked at Ethan. "In 5 minutes. You discovered what 20 engineers missed in 6 months." Ethan shrugged. "I've seen this before." Everyone looked at him. "You have?" He nodded. "Years ago, I repaired a race car with the exact same symptoms. The owner had unknowingly installed a counterfeit replacement part. The failure looked complicated. But the solution was simple." The chief engineer lowered his head. "We assumed the most expensive explanation." Ethan smiled. "Sometimes the simplest answer is the correct one." Victoria crossed her arms. "If replacing this sensor fixes the Bugatti, I owe you an apology." Ethan replied calmly. "I'm not interested in apologies. I just want the truth." A genuine Bugatti sensor was immediately ordered from the company's secure parts vault. 30 minutes later, it arrived. The entire workshop gathered around the car. No one spoke. The new sensor was installed. Victoria looked at Ethan. "Would you like to start it?" Ethan nodded. He climbed into the driver's seat and pressed the ignition button. The W16 engine roared to life. Everyone held their breath. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5 minutes. The engine kept running. Then 10 minutes. Still perfect. Cheers erupted across the workshop. Some engineers actually applauded. Others couldn't stop smiling. But Ethan wasn't celebrating. He was staring at a security camera mounted above the service bay. Something had caught his attention. He turned to Victoria. "Can I ask you one question?" "Of course." "Who serviced this Bugatti 6 months ago?" Victoria's smile faded. She turned toward her service manager. The manager suddenly looked nervous. Very nervous. And in that moment, Ethan realized this wasn't just a repair. Someone had deliberately installed that counterfeit sensor. The workshop was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Victoria slowly turned toward her service manager. "Who worked on my Bugatti 6 months ago?" The manager hesitated. "Ma'am. I. Answer me." He swallowed hard. It was assigned to senior technician Daniel Ross. "Where is he now?" "He resigned 3 months ago." The room grew quiet. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Did he resign? Or did he disappear? The manager looked confused. "We haven't heard from him since." Victoria immediately called the security department. "I want every service record and every camera recording from 6 months ago. Now." Within minutes, the security team loaded the archived footage. Everyone gathered around the large monitor. The video showed Daniel Ross servicing the Bugatti late at night. Everything looked normal. Until Ethan pointed at the screen. "Pause." The technician froze the video. Daniel was holding a small black box. It wasn't part of the dealership's equipment. Zoom in. The image became clearer. Daniel quietly removed a sensor from the engine. Then, instead of installing a factory replacement, he took another sensor from the black box. No official packaging. No barcode. No dealership label. He installed it, closed the hood, and left. The room fell silent. Victoria couldn't believe her eyes. He knowingly installed a counterfeit part. The chief engineer shook his head. And signed a report saying he used a genuine Bugatti component. That meant only one thing. Fraud. But Ethan wasn't convinced the mystery was over. He replayed the footage again. This time, he wasn't watching Daniel. He was watching the background. Then he smiled. "There." "What?" Victoria asked. Pause again. A luxury SUV appeared outside the workshop window. Only for a few seconds. The license plate was partially visible. The security manager enhanced the image. One of the executives gasped. "That SUV belongs to Apex Automotive." Everyone recognized the name. Apex Automotive was Titan Elite Motors' biggest competitor. Victoria's expression hardened. "They've been trying to buy our engine technology for years." Ethan nodded. "I don't think this was about stealing your Bugatti. I think someone wanted to delay your entire company." The room became completely silent. The counterfeit sensor hadn't just disabled a car. It had forced Titan Elite Motors to waste 6 months. Lose millions of dollars. And postpone the launch of its newest supercar. Victoria looked at Ethan. "You think this was sabotage?" Ethan answered without hesitation. "I don't think. I know. Just then, the security manager received an email. He opened it. His face turned pale. We found Daniel Ross. Where is he? Victoria asked. The manager looked up. He was hired by Apex Automotive, 1 week after leaving Titan Elite. The workshop erupted in shock. But Ethan remained calm. Because he knew the real mastermind behind the sabotage hadn't been caught yet. The room was filled with tension. No one could believe what they had just learned. Daniel Ross, the senior technician everyone trusted, had left Titan Elite Motors and joined Apex Automotive just 1 week later. Victoria looked at Ethan. You were right. This wasn't an accident. Ethan nodded. But Daniel wasn't acting alone. The engineers exchanged puzzled looks. What makes you say that? Asked the chief engineer. Ethan pointed at the service records. Daniel had access to the Bugatti. But he didn't have access to the prototype engine project. The room fell silent. If the goal was to delay your company, he needed help from someone much higher. Victoria's expression changed. She immediately called the head of corporate security. I want a full audit. Every email. Every access card. Every employee connected to Project Phoenix. Within hours, investigators searched the company's digital records. Late that evening, the security chief entered the conference room carrying a laptop. His face was serious. We found something. Everyone stood up. What is it? Victoria asked. The security chief projected several emails onto the large screen. One name appeared over and over again. Michael Grant, Titan Elite's vice president of operations. One of Victoria's most trusted executives. The room became silent. Michael had secretly exchanged dozens of encrypted emails with Daniel Ross. The messages discussed shipment schedules, prototype testing dates, and confidential engineering reports. Then they found the final email. It had been sent the night before Daniel resigned. It contained just one sentence. Replace the sensor. Delay the launch. I'll handle the rest. Gasps echoed across the room. Victoria stared at the screen in disbelief. Michael had worked beside her for 12 years. She trusted him like family. Minutes later, security officers escorted Michael into the conference room. He looked calm. Until he saw the evidence. Victoria placed the printed emails on the table. Do you recognize these? Michael remained silent. Answer me. After several long seconds, he lowered his head. Yes. The room froze. I accepted money from Apex Automotive. I thought Titan's project would fail anyway. So I chose the winning side. No one spoke. The betrayal was worse than anyone imagined. Because of Michael's actions, the company had lost millions of dollars, delayed its biggest product launch, and nearly destroyed its reputation. Security escorted him out of the building. As he disappeared down the hallway, every employee realized one thing. The greatest threat to a company isn't always outside. Sometimes, it's the person sitting in the office next door. Victoria turned toward Ethan. You didn't just save my Bugatti. You saved this company. Ethan smiled modestly. I just followed the evidence. Victoria nodded. And because of that, I have one final offer for you. She placed a sealed envelope on the table. Inside was something that would completely change Ethan's future. The conference room was completely silent. Victoria placed the sealed envelope in front of Ethan. This is my offer. Ethan opened it slowly. Inside was a contract. Not for a job. Not for a salary. It was an offer to become Blackstone's independent technical consultant, allowing him to keep his own garage while advising the company only when needed. Victoria smiled. I know you won't leave your daughter or your garage. So I'm not asking you to. The room looked surprised. She had changed the offer just for him. Ethan smiled. This. I can accept. The executives applauded. For the first time, the room wasn't celebrating a successful engine. They were celebrating honesty and skill. Over the following weeks, news of the Bugatti repair spread across the automotive industry. Headlines read: 20 engineers failed, small-town mechanics solved it in 5 minutes. Blackstone's reputation recovered. The delayed supercar project finally launched. Investors returned. Orders exceeded every expectation. Meanwhile, the investigation into Apex Automotive continued. Daniel Ross and Michael Grant were both charged with corporate fraud, industrial sabotage, and theft of confidential information. The court ordered them to pay millions in damages. Apex Automotive publicly denied involvement, but several executives resigned during the investigation. Their reputation never fully recovered. 1 month later, Victoria visited Ethan's small garage. Nothing had changed. The same old building. The same worn toolbox. The same coffee machine in the corner. Only one thing was different. Customers were waiting outside. Some had driven hundreds of miles just to meet the mechanic who had fixed the impossible Bugatti. Lily walked into the office carrying 2 cups of coffee. Victoria smiled. You must be Lily. She nodded proudly. My dad says every problem has a solution. Victoria laughed. He's right. Ethan looked around his little garage. You know, a lot of people think success means owning the biggest company. Victoria smiled. And what do you think? Ethan looked at his daughter, then at the customers waiting outside. I think success is going home every evening knowing you solved someone's problem. Victoria nodded. I spent years chasing bigger profits. But today, I learned something much more valuable. She extended her hand. Thank you. Ethan shook it. No. Thank you for giving me 5 minutes. 6 months later, Blackstone launched a nationwide scholarship for young mechanics from small towns. It was called the Brooks Fellowship. Its motto was displayed at every training center. Talent doesn't need a fancy title. Hundreds of students received opportunities they never thought possible. Some became engineers. Some opened their own repair shops. Others went on to design the next generation of performance cars. And every one of them knew the story of the single dad who solved in 5 minutes what 20 top engineers couldn't. Because real expertise isn't measured by expensive tools or famous job titles. It's measured by curiosity, humility, and the courage to look where everyone else forgot to look.